Hi there. You are listening to episode 19 of the Air Hug Community Podcast. You're listening to the Air Hug Community Podcast. I'm your host, Judy Arizosa, and on this podcast, I bring you conversations and stories from guests and myself that inspire us to thrive on a higher level. We talk about things like relationships and habits for optimal health and how we see the world. Whether you are a mother or an other, the Air Hug community is here to help you realize that improving the lives of others will boomerang back to you exponentially. And remember, not to be too serious. Life is better with a daily dose of smiles and air hugs. All right, everybody, here we are for another fun episode at the Air Hug Community Podcast. And today we have a very special guest who I'm super excited to introduce. And we have the camera on again, so we're smiling at each other. But today, our guest is Meg Burton. You know what? I didn't ask you how to pronounce your last name. Tudman or Tudman?
Tudman. Meg Burton Tudman.
Meg Burton Tudman. So Meg is a coach, an author, and a speaker who works to help women support their highest selves. So Meg, I'm going to ask you to tell us how you came up with this line of work as your mission, and tell us a little bit about yourself. And then before we got on, we were talking about 2020 and December in general being a roller coaster year. So we're going to talk a little bit about thinking of the year in terms of a roller coaster. But go ahead, Meg, tell us about yourself and what's going on and how you got to where you are.
Great. Thanks, Judy. It's such a pleasure to be here. I am on a mission to support superwomen in aligning their mind, body, and soul so that they can live a life that they love. And I do that right now through mindset coaching, Reiki, and meditation. And the roller coaster fits in perfectly with all of that. As Judy mentioned, we're recording this in December, mid-holiday season, and the year 2020 has definitely been a roller coaster in general. And one of the things we were chatting about before we hit record was, I think that there is such power for us in acknowledging the roller coaster and accepting what is, giving us permission to kind of ride the wave, if you will. And that's not to say that we're okay with what's happening or even that we like what's happening, but rather it's an opportunity for us to get grounded in reality, the facts of what's happening, and then to give ourselves permission to actually feel what are the emotions that are coming up for us. And can we feel those and process those and then move forward with action after that? One of the things I said to Judy before, again, we started recording, was that for a long time, I would just stuff my feelings down. I wouldn't acknowledge them. I would try to bury them and just push past them. And when we do that, there's a volcanic eruption that's going to happen at some point. And so I think being able to feel what we're feeling can be so powerful for us in order to process what's happening. And if we can feel it and then consciously not attach a story to it, so that we feel the feeling, not attach a story to it, and again, then move forward with action, there's some magic that happens for us when we embrace that intentional action.
So much of what we conjure up is a story in our head.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I think for me, and I know for a lot of my clients too, we tell ourselves these stories and then they become so deeply rooted that we take them as gospel. Like they become our reality when in fact, they're not reality. They're just a story that we're telling ourselves. It's a way that we're perceiving what either has happened for us or is happening for us.
Yes. So much Byron Katie here. Do you
yes,
know Byron?
I
Right?
do. Yes.
Totally loving what is, right? This is loving what is right here, but it's a hard thing to do.
It is. It definitely takes practice.
Yeah, just the whole story thing of
Mhm.
how many times have we heard people say, I don't do this, or I can't do this, or this means that. But who said,
Right,
where's the
right.
research? Right.
Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, how did you get into this line of work?
So I, for the longest time, I felt this pull to be doing work that mattered. And I tried to reframe the work I used to do, in a million different ways. So you talk about like, what's the story you're attaching? So I
Yeah.
tried to frame it, I'm helping my clients, I'm mentoring newer employees, a bunch of different ways to look at the work I was doing. And at the end of the day, I still was coming up short. I felt like there's something else that I meant to do. And so I ended up getting fired from a job, which at the time
Ouch.
was a awful, exactly. Yes, it was an ouch for sure. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I, couldn't believe that it had happened. And I also had no idea what my identity was going to be because I was so attached to work as me. Again, another story. And so I took a moment and, did some deep soul searching to try to figure out what is next for me. And being fired was definitely a gift for sure, although it took me a while to be able to frame it that way. But I ended up chatting with a friend of mine who is also a coach and learned more about the program she went through and immediately felt that pull again in my heart and knew that that was the next right step for me, the next best step to take. And so I dove into certification for coaching. I dove into the mindset work, not only for myself, but also, as a way to teach to others,
Mhm.
and have been going strong ever since then.
So that's amazing. You really had to go through. It's so funny how, like, you didn't want to get fired and then you got fired. It's like we go through these low points that really are necessary.
Yes, absolutely. And what I think is so interesting about that is I don't know when I would have left had I not been fired. So that was like the universe giving me the push that I needed
Hmm.
to try something different. And sometimes we need that push, and sometimes it feels horrible at the time. Sometimes it can be a real struggle. But if we can, again, process and feel what we're feeling and use it as an opportunity to learn and to grow rather than an opportunity to get stuck and to kind of lament or ruminate about what was.
Yeah,
There's a
but
lot.
please tell me that you like at least lamented a little bit and you
For
had to
sure.
like.
Oh my gosh. It's funny. I ended up staying for an extra week and a half after they fired me. And I did that for a few reasons. I did it, one, because I was so ashamed. And I thought, well, I can soften the blow a little bit if I stay a little bit longer.
Ooh.
And I also did it because I was so dedicated to the work and to my clients. And I thought there's no way that I can just like up and leave. And so I ended up staying for, again, that week and a half just to wrap everything up. But it was really hard. I mean, that's a blow, especially when it's unexpected.
Mhm.
And so, yes, I lamented for sure. There were a lot of tears. There was a lot of what in the world am I going to do now? Who in the world am I without this? What am I going to tell people? So yes, it's not easy for
It's like a
sure.
bad breakup, right? What
Yeah.
people think.
Yes, yes. And that goes back to the story too, right? Like we conjure up in our head this narrative about how we think people are going to react, and we have no idea how getting fired is a lot more common than I ever thought it was. And it doesn't mean that we failed, and it doesn't mean that we're a bad person, but we can feel all of that initially. So it's not easy. There's no way to sugarcoat it. But I think it can be a gift if we can get to that place.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you said initially about riding the wave and accepting it. It's one of the things that you cannot change,
Right.
and so you actually were given a new direction. So interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in knowing how you weave Reiki or Reiki.
Reiki.
Reiki into all of this?
Yeah, so I love Reiki. I was turned on to Reiki by a yoga teacher of mine, and you can think of Reiki as conscious energy healing. So consider that we are all energetic beings having a human experience, and that there's energy flowing through us and around us at all times. I think a simple way to look at it, if you haven't explored energy or energy work, is to consider, when you walk in a room and the hair on the back of your neck or the hair on your arms stands up, that's often an energetic response to something.
Mm-hmm.
So what I love about conscious energy healing is that we can be doing all of the things, right? We can be investing mind, body, and soul and doing, everything we can to support our highest self. And if we have an energy block, then despite our best efforts, we have a really hard time getting to that level that we can get to, right? To that level that we're seeking, because of those blocks. And those blocks can be, those can happen for a number of different reasons. Our emotions can get stuck as energy. Physical illness can get stuck as energy. Our mindset certainly impacts our energy. And so all of that gets stuck in the body, there's an opportunity to release that so that the energy can be flowing more freely, more clearly, more unencumbered.
Wow. It's funny because I was just listening to another podcast actually, and the topic was a little bit about stress in the autoimmune system and how like we could actually think of 2020 as the year of PTSD, we've all gone through some post-traumatic stresses between COVID and Black Lives Matter. And if you're here in the US, it's crazy election that, all those things have really like taken a toll on us.
Mm-hmm. This has been a wild year for sure.
Yeah. So with Reiki, I have to say it right.
You got it.
I'm such a like newbie. So can you do it if you're not, like if you're distance coaching, now that we're doing a lot of things by distance?
Yeah, so my whole practice is online, coaching and Reiki. And yes, you can do it distance. If you think about the practitioner being a conduit for energy. So there's energy coming from a higher source, and that's, that resonates differently for different people. So it might be spirit, might be universe, might be God. That's going to channel through the practitioner and then be sent, if you will, to the person receiving the energy healing.
Neat. And as the conduit or the messenger, I don't know, how do you know? I guess, how does it work?
Yeah, so there's energy coming from a higher source through the practitioner to the person receiving it. And a lot of times the person receiving it will feel a sense of warmth, a sense of tingling. Some people see colors. Some people see, other types of vision. I think color is probably the most common, but I've heard of people see other things. Sometimes there is an emotional response. So you may feel like you need to cry or even laugh. I've had other clients who have coughed, like an involuntary cough. And I've had others who have felt nothing, which is okay. That happens. It doesn't mean it's not working. I've had others who have experienced nothing during the healing session, but have then come back and said, oh my goodness, ABC happened for me, or I have clarity around this, or, whatever the case may be. So it's a different experience for everybody. And it's a different experience too, I think, depending on the practitioner. So just like if you were to get massage or acupuncture, that's going to be different depending on the practitioner you're seeing. This is the same thing. You may have a different experience.
So
Not good or bad, better or worse, just different.
just different. So
Mhm.
I'm wondering, as you brought that up, if there are like maybe better, like practitioner, messenger, Reiki master, whatever they
That's
are,
a
like
great
combos.
question.
Like, do you know if you're going to be a good match for someone?
I think that it's the energetic match, right? That's going to heighten the
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, as a honest practitioner, it's up to you if you're, not getting the sense that this is a good fit to say that up front. And same for the person receiving it, the client, for them to say, I'm not feeling it. Because really, if you're not open to it and not feeling it, you could have the best practitioner in the world, whatever best means, and it's probably not going to work for you
Yeah.
because
They're
you've
putting up
got that.
roadblocks.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny because having done one-on-one, I started in one-on-one personal training,
Yeah.
and definitely not everyone's a match. And I've had to fire, I hate to say the word, I've had to fire clients or just say, look, this isn't going to work.
Right.
I really can't help you, and I'm never offended when people are ready to, I call it the breakup, to break up with
Right.
me. But I think it's so funny because very oftentimes people feel compelled to come up with an excuse, a lie, and I'm
Yes.
like, it's okay, because not everyone can help everyone.
Right. Well, I think too, especially as women, we're so apprehensive about hurting anybody's feelings. And
Yes.
I think a lot of us are doing it to the detriment of ourselves, right? Like if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. It doesn't mean that either person is right or wrong, good or bad. It's just that energetically there's not a match.
Yeah.
And that's okay, create space so that you as the client can attract who you're really seeking, and create space for the trainer, the practitioner, the coach, so that they can attract and make space for, the ideal fit there.
That makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably a good reason why we actually niche down our clients, right? Our little
Yes.
ideal clients.
Right. So important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
No offense to anyone who's not, in someone's niche, but it makes a difference.
It does make a difference. And I think, there's someone for everybody. And that goes
Yeah.
both ways, right? Like practitioner to client and vice versa. And so, referring out and saying, this probably isn't a good fit, but I've got somebody who is, or, being open to coming across people who might be a good fit for clients that just don't fit in with your expertise.
Yeah. That's neat. And I think that takes a lot of self-confidence to just be like, it's okay. Someone
Yeah.
else is going to help them,
I think there's an element of self-confidence, and I think there's also an element of like accepting abundance rather than scarcity, that there is someone else out there, like the good
yeah.
match is out there. And I've been giving a lot of thought to that lately, like that, the difference between a scarcity and abundant mindset. And, what are the thoughts and beliefs that we can engage with when we're trying to cultivate that sense of abundance? And one is that there's enough for everybody. And so in this case, I think that gives you a little bit of hopefully confidence to know that it's okay to send a client somewhere else so that, right, they can get the support that they need truly, and that you can also make space for someone who's a better fit for you.
And someone who really, needs you. Yeah.
Right. Needs you. Yeah, needs you and resonates with what you have to offer, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. It's not good for anybody.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Flooding me back to the early years. It's like some of it's pretty funny,
Mm-hmm.
And just having the confidence to say, it's not going to work.
Right.
It's not going to work. Let's just move on and go ahead with, I don't even know how we got down this little avenue, but it's a good one actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely interesting, and it's Wow, I want to go back to the roller coaster because
Sure. Because we're
it's
on
just,
it.
we're on the roller coaster, and something just got really dark in here, even though we're chatting, that's okay. But we're looking at each other. The whole roller coaster of 2020, and then add the roller coaster of December where expectations are high. You know what I'm hearing a lot of, and again, we're recording this in the height of the holiday season. It's the first third of December, and I'm hearing so many expectations about what 2021 is going to be like.
Mm,
And it's mostly like closing the door on 2020. And I'm thinking, just because we turn a page on the calendar, while we'd like to think that that's going to close, some of the hurt and anxiety and stress that we're having, I don't think merely just turning the calendar page is going to do it. So, I mean, what can we do?
I was thinking about that exact same thing recently.
Yeah.
That's so great you brought that up.
Yeah.
What's so interesting is that there are, I think, certain points of the year, and January 1st is definitely one of them. September seems to be one too. Even if you don't have kids in school, that still
Yeah.
seems to be like an opportunity to start fresh.
It's like we all come back inside. Yeah.
Right, right. And I think that, if we can start over and wipe the slate clean any moment of any day. It doesn't have to be January 1st. It doesn't have to be beginning of September. It doesn't have to be our birthday. We can do that
Or
anytime.
a Monday, right?
Yes, right. New week. We can do that anytime. And there's definitely, I think, an element of mindset that has to go along with that. So if January 1st does for you, then that's great. Like if that's going to be your fresh start, then, frame your mindset around that, and let that work for you. I think at the same time, though, know that you can do that anytime. Like you can start to engage with the thoughts, and you can start to create beliefs that allow you to take a deep breath and wipe the slate clean and begin again. There doesn't have to be a specific date on the calendar that gives you permission to do that. You can give yourself permission to do that anytime. One thing I think is so interesting, one of the things you mentioned was, we're all looking ahead to 2021. We're going to close the door on 2020. And I don't think any of us want to relive 2020. So, I'm not suggesting we go back in time. There is a lot of power, though, if we can just be in the moment. And I know that gets thrown around, especially in the wellness community, quite a bit.
Yes.
But from a mindfulness and a mindset standpoint, being present and being grounded and accepting what is happening right now is so amazing for our health and well-being, and also our confidence too. Not looking forward with anxiety towards the future, not ruminating back and, replaying what has happened in the past. Neither one of those are working really well for us. Neither one serves us very well. But if we can find a way to be present, to be mindful of what is actually happening for us at any given moment, then we experience what's really happening. I mean, we've got this one life here that we're living, and there's such beauty and there's such, awesome things that happen for us moment to moment. And it can be so easy, and I am as guilty as anybody else, it can be so easy for us to miss those when we're so focused on, let me just get to January 1st. I just have to get through the holidays in this case. Let me just power through and put my head down and not really experience it. Let me just move through the motions.
Yeah.
And then we miss it.
And then we miss the present. I'm totally guilty of spending a lot of time thinking in the future and thinking about the past. And then when I realize when that happens, I have to catch myself and feel like I just missed now.
Right.
Because I was, a lot of times just like planning ahead for Christmas, planning ahead for January 1st, planning ahead for, whatever's coming up, And while I guess planning is good, I mean, everyone's like, do you have your business plan? Do you have this plan? Do you have that plan? Do you have your challenges, whatever? But then we forget to live day to day,
Right, right.
you know?
And there's an element of balance and harmony that I think we have to take into account. So to your point, we're not flying by the seat of our pants, like never
No.
planning anything. But where can we create the harmony so that yes, we've got a plan that, will try to help come to fruition, but we're also not missing the little things that are happening day to day for
Yeah.
us that really make our life. I mean, the big things are major for sure, but it's those little things that happen over and over again. It's the habits and the rituals that we invest in. That's what's creating our life. Less, I think, than the big milestone events.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because, right, I know I'm in midlife, maybe a little bit past. Okay, because, yeah, never mind. If I double my age, most people don't live that long. That's all I'm going to say. But my husband and I, back when we used to go to restaurants, if we would see a family with little kids, we would immediately, and we both have like the same memories, get flooded with these adorable memories of like, remember when we used to go to a restaurant with 4 little kids? Oh my gosh, right? And at the time, right, we're just like hoping nobody throws their spaghetti across the room or whatever, but we really did have a good time. And it was like every day is the time of your life if you stop and think about it. And sometimes those little memories, you can go back for a minute, but then we remember like, well, today's pretty good too.
Right, right, right. And if it's not good, what's a different choice that we can make to kind of up that good feeling, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being kind of like a passive liver of our life, how can we be a more active participant?
Yes. And maybe we change the story, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, I love that.
Yeah. I'm all about the story. I
Me
have
too. That's been
listened.
so powerful for me.
She's amazing, Byron Katie. I think I
Mm-hmm.
have listened to that book on Audible like 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially if the roller coaster's in a down. You guys can't see this, but I'm talking with my hands because I'm a little Italian girl. It's a story, but I am. Um, but when the roller coaster goes down, I will often pop some kind of inspirational read or listen. Usually it's a listen because I really
Mm-hmm.
like to hear the inflection in people's voices.
That's amazing. I love that. And that's a perfect example. What's a different choice I can make? Like, I don't have to be stuck at kind of the bottom of this roller coaster ride. I can make a different choice. I can listen to something inspiring to get myself back up.
Yeah. I have a friend who all year long, when she's at the bottom of her roller coaster, she watches Christmas movies.
Oh, that's great.
And that's so funny. And now the story in my head was, you can't do that after January 1st. Like I totally had the story for years in my head that I could not have that enjoyment. It could only go from December 1 to January 1. And then even on
Mhm.
January 1, it was like, oh no. Mm-mm. And then when she said that, I'm like, man, I've been probably robbing myself of some great like little Hallmark movies that, could happen the rest of the year.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. It's wild how strong those stories can be and how they really can dictate what we will allow and not allow ourselves to do. And, it's a neat exercise for anybody listening who, catches themselves with one of those stories, especially the ones that are on repeat, to really tease it out and to go back to like, where did this originally start for me? What was it originally rooted in? Because
Mhm.
chances are it served you well at the time. We're meant to survive and thrive. So our body and mind are going to do everything they can to protect us and keep us safe. And sometimes I think we hold on to those stories longer than we need to, longer than they're serving us
Yeah.
well. So at the time, that worked and there was a reason for it. And if you can kind of dig deep and think back and do some exploration, it can be so helpful in helping you release that story and move forward from it. Yes, I
Yes.
recognize this served me well. And now, I can put it to bed. I don't need that anymore to keep me safe, essentially.
What power that is to
Hmm.
realize, right? It
Yes.
did serve me, but at some point it stopped. And
Hmm.
why hold on to it, right?
Right. And I think, the acknowledgement and the acceptance that this did serve me well at a time helps to lessen that like the self-judgment and the self-criticism that can
Mhm.
be so strong, when we realize we've been doing something that doesn't serve us well anymore. So you can drop that because it did serve you well. There was a reason that you
Yeah.
did it. And at the time, that was all you knew. That was the best decision you could make, given what you knew, given the circumstances, given, how you showed up that day. And now we've got a different day, whether it's, 24 hours or 24 years later, and
Yeah.
it's okay to release that story and to create a new one that is serving you well.
I can think of so many different levels of how that could be applied, whether it's relationships or a lot of it is relationships, I think,
Hmm.
both with ourselves and with others, work
Yes.
relationships, social relationships, people, friendships come and go, and um, even people ending significant other relationships,
Hmm.
amazing. So,
It is amazing. I think too, if you, consider like how much of other relationships do we bring into new relationships, right? Where we hold somebody, to a standard that's based on, I'm not sure the right word, like our evaluation of somebody else, right? Or our expectation of someone else. And now
yeah,
all of a sudden we're applying that and we're kind of like dragging all the old baggage into the current relationship and
yeah.
getting clear on, what are those stories and giving yourself permission to let them go can be so helpful in allowing you to be present and in a relationship with your true self and the other person's true self.
That is, again, all sorts of stories just flooded my head with everything you said. I was thinking. I won't go into them, but like I'll bet you guys out there are thinking the same thing. As Meg was going through, did you kind of come up with like a story or an expectation that you maybe held for someone you're meeting now that was what you thought was idealistic, in the past?
Right.
Yikes. Yeah.
And one thing too, to our listeners, as you think about those things, I have found it so helpful to think about things like that from the standpoint of being curious rather than critical, right? So looking at that almost like it were a science experiment, like, oh, this is so interesting. What about this? What about that? Rather than attaching a new story
To
that's
it.
rooted in judgment and criticism. Because that I don't think serves us well. So if you can swap the criticism for curiosity and get interested in it, get curious about why is it that I did this and or
Yeah.
am doing it. And what are my opportunities here? What are my choices?
That is a great way. I have never heard of that. Get curious versus critical, but
Mm-hmm.
replace criticism with curiosity.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it becomes open ended in the possibilities, right? Ask five
Yes.
questions, right?
Yes. Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And think about just, energetically what it does for you, how much more creative you can be when you're not feeling attacked, when you're not feeling like I'm just going to shut down because, I was wrong, or whatever the adjective is that you're going to attach to it. There's so much freedom to give ourselves permission to, think about all the different opportunities, think about all the different ways we could approach things, think about all the different solutions that
Yeah.
maybe wouldn't have come up if we were feeling defensive or criticized or, not worthy or good enough.
Yeah. You know what? The big word and the big feeling that came about when you said all that to me was if you get more curious, you have no room for shame.
Yes. Oh, that's good.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. And I think, the more you bring to light, whether it's just light for you or, light for others, the more you bring to light, shame can't survive in that. I think Brene Brown
Yeah,
said
she's
that, right?
another of my
She's
favorites.
amazing. Me too. Me
So
too.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. But once we bring it to light, shame can't thrive in that kind of environment.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So tell me what you are most excited about these days.
I am most excited about some workshops that I have on the horizon. I am offering them myself and then also partnering with corporations. And it has been such a blast to partner and lead these remarkable superwomen who are, just showing up and trying to do it all the while trying to stay true to themselves. And so helping them with support and techniques and conscious actions that they can start taking so that they are cared for, so that they can show up fully and authentically and feel grounded and aligned. So I'm most excited about that.
Wow. Okay. So tell me, and I will put this in the show notes too, where can people find more information?
Sure. My website is probably the best for a catch-all, and that is megburtontudman.com.
All right. And that will be in the show notes.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. This has been so enlightening. I think, and it's, again, I love the open-ended conversations that come about, because versus like nailing you with questions, just letting you go in the direction that I didn't expect us to go in this direction. And I'm delighted.
Me too. Thank you so much, Judy. It was such a pleasure. I loved the direction that it took and the tangents too. That was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And we're getting some crackles here, but I think we're okay. So, all right. Thank you. It will all be in the show notes, and we'll talk soon, Meg.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm super grateful for you taking the time to listen. It really does mean so much to me. And hey, check out the airhugcommunity.com for any references in the show notes. And if this episode touched you, please subscribe and leave a review and share it with someone who you think might benefit from listening to it.